Oceanography News.
So water roll me home. Day will come, but night is long. The siren song still calls me young. The fading candle is growing dim. So water pull me in.
Knowledge of the oceans is more than a matter of curiosity. Our very survival may hinge upon it.
Welcome to Ocean News 15, and this week's episode starts out with a story from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. In 1917, the USS F-1 Submarine sank off the coast of California after a tragic collision during a training mission in heavy fog, taking with it 19 crew members. Over a century later, researchers have captured the most detailed images yet of the wreckage from 1,400 feet below the surface. Using cutting-edge technology, CUREE and partners from the National Science Foundation, the Office of Naval Research, and Naval History and Heritage Command surveyed the site, revealing hauntingly well-preserved visuals of World War I era sub. In a story titled, "In 1917, a U.S. submarine sank in the fog. Experts just got detailed images." The USS F-1 was hit broadside by another sub during a training exercise and sank in seconds, killing 19 crew members. The captain of the F-1 submarine later testified that, in the fog, he didn't see the oncoming vessel until the last second. Someone yelled to close the main deck hatch, but it was too late. The other boat rammed the F-1 and cut a huge gash in its side. It was December 17, 1917. Up in the conning tower, sailors heard the loud whoosh of air being forced out as their sub filled with seawater. The 5 men topside were thrown into the ocean and later rescued. Below deck, 19 men were trapped. 1 man got to the surface, where he was spotted with searchlights. The F-1 sank in seconds, a few miles off the coast of San Diego, on a routine training mission. Last month, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution unveiled what it says are the most sophisticated high-tech images of the Navy wreck taken since it was found some 50 years ago. Mostly videos showed the boat resting on its side in 1,400 feet of water, the deadly hole in its hull visible just behind the conning tower. The institution also released a photogrammetric representation of the sub, assembled with about 5,000 video frames. The collision knocked men aboard the F-3 down and sent dishware flying, but no one was seriously injured, and the damage was minimal. The skipper, Lieutenant William M. Quigley, was on deck when he spotted an F-1 sailor in the water yelling for help. "We made him out with the searchlights," Quigley testified. He was about 75 yards away. Quigley kicked off his boots and, with another sailor, went into the water to get him. But because of the fog and the rolling surface swell, they had trouble seeing him. By the time they neared the place where they had spotted him, he was gone. Given how quickly the sub sank, coupled with how intact the wreck is, we believe that any such remains would be within the interior of the sub, Bradley A. Kruger, an archaeologist with Naval History and Heritage Command in Washington, said in an email. The boat was state-of-the-art for its time. Its record-setting dive was 283 feet in 1912, but after almost 108 years on the seafloor, it appeared slightly antique. "It almost has a Jules Vernean component," Strickrot said, referring to the 19th century French novelist Jules Verne, who invented the fictional submarine Nautilus. It actually had a wheel in the open-air conning tower, like a traditional wheel right off a sailing ship. "You can see where the sub was half ship and half sub," he said. "Once Alvin reached the bottom, visibility was reasonably low, but as soon as we got close to the wreck, you could see it perfectly," Strickrot said in a recent telephone interview. Kruger said, "It was just this incredible moment where your heart kind of skips a beat. You're seeing this incredibly well-preserved shipwreck just lying there quietly on the bottom of the sea. The collision occurred at about 7 p.m. when a heavy fog bank enveloped the 3 U.S. submarines, the F-1, the F-3, which rammed into the F-1, and a third sub, the F-2, as they were running on the surface in loose formation off the California coast. The boats were sounding their high-pitched fog whistles and had posted lookouts according to 1918 inquest, but the fog was so thick that one sailor testified that he could not see 50 yards ahead. The Navy had only 4 F-class boats, and one, the F-4, had already gone down with all hands 2 years earlier, when leaking battery acid ate into the hull. The boats are only about 140 feet long. They had no radar, which was developed later, and crude, unreliable radios that could barely be heard over the engine noise. Caught in the fog bank in the dark, all 3 boats began maneuvering to escape. The F-2 made it to safety, but as the F-1 and F-3 scrambled in the murk, the F-3 made a U-turn that had it heading toward the F-1's left side. The 2 boats didn't see each other until the last minute, according to the inquest. The skipper of the F-3 shut down its engines in an attempt to stop. The F-1 swerved but couldn't get out of the way. 2-foot deep hole was punched in its hull. The F-1 rolled to one side, righted itself, and immediately began to sink, stern first. As the air was forced out of the conning tower hatch, it made a rushing noise, almost like a whistle, witnesses testified. The boats went down so fast that the sailors said they floated off the deck. Those men, including Captain Lieutenant Alfred E. Montgomery, were pulled out of the water by the crew of the F-3. I did not make any effort to clear the ship, said F-1 machinist J.M. Smishrouter. It seemed as though I stepped right overboard. Sailor J.J. Burns testified, I stood on the bridge until the water came up over my head. Several men on the F-3 sub said they saw an eerie blue flame come from F-1's conning tower as the boat went under. The men within the sub had no chance of escape, said Kruger of the Navy's History Command. Now in the modern era, we are switching to uncrewed and unmanned vessels and unmanned underwater platforms. As Igor Galkin, chief USV operator at Fugro, puts it, uncrewed, unrivaled, and unbelievable. Meet the fleet that's reshaping the future of offshore operations. Our uncrewed surface vessels are working 24/7 in the toughest conditions, delivering real-time data for your inspection, construction, and survey missions. We're reducing emissions with full control from our global network of onshore remote operation centers. With no crew on board, safety is enhanced by design. This is offshore innovation in action. And here's the video from Fugro, which is one of the leading USV manufacturers in the industry. Story out of Hole Oceanographic Institution. Dive surveys may be fun, but could they be more efficient? CUREE robotics engineer Yogi Girdhar developed a CUREE, a smart robot that can survey complex reef ecosystems more affordably and efficiently than divers. CUREE can cruise around reefs for hours, using cameras and machine learning to identify species, map habitat, and monitor biodiversity in real time. It can even sample chemicals and collect water without damaging fragile coral structures thanks to its precise adaptive movements. Combined with soundscape recordings and other reef monitoring tools, CUREE could help create a fully early warning system for reef health, spotting signs of disease before it becomes widespread. Another story out of Hole Oceanographic Institution. Just like a doctor might order a blood test to find an infection in your body, CUREE reef solution scientists are analyzing seawater microbes to learn more about the health of coral reef ecosystems. Learn how this fast, non-invasive method can be used to save some of Earth's most biodiverse locations, from Manga Bay. Our next story comes from Lloyd Maritime Institute, Underwater Welding, where engineering meets extreme environments. Ever witness metal being fused beneath the waves? What you're seeing is underwater cutting and welding, a critical technique used for maintaining ship hulls, offshore platforms, underwater pipelines, and subsea infrastructure. How does it work? Using shielded metal arc welding, or exothermic torches, divers generate a gas bubble around the arc, allowing the metal to melt and fuse even while submerged under pressure. It's one of the most dangerous jobs ever conceived. There's a risk of drowning, being electrocuted, and far worse while these men perform this task. Our next story comes out of OceanX. Why has so little of the ocean been truly explored? Because until now, the technology simply hasn't existed to make sense of what we find. That's starting to change. Our team is building a digital twin of the NOLA Seamount Complex, a high-fidelity, data-rich model that will turn deep-sea exploration into something researchers and policymakers can actually use. It will help predict species distributions, visualize ecosystems, and translate complex observations into scientific insight.
We're creating a digital twin of the NOLA Seamount Complex. Basically, we take everything we see and learn about the seamounts during our ROV dives and create a visual and data-accurate replica. This AI will help us translate discovery into meaningful information by producing deep-sea visuals of complex data and even predict species distributions throughout a transect line.
Knowledge of the oceans is more than a matter of curiosity. Our very survival may hinge upon it.
Inside your heart.